we've got a fifth plane at 9/11 story that's resurfacing. It's not. This is actually if you're like
what? A fifth plane?
Yeah, if you're like a hardcore truther, you kind of know about this. There was allegedly a fifth plane, and it was United Flight 23. And there was a TMZ of all people did a documentary on it. And just so because we're multi-streaming, the Twitch and YouTube overlords, this is just what I noticed. So Colin posted this because it's resurfaced because they just posted it to YouTube yesterday.
Okay.
There's 3 community notes on this, none of which actually debunk it. The first one says, this documentary is 2 years old. Okay. Did that really need to be community noted? It actually was it was just uploaded on YouTube yesterday. Then it says, the FBI acknowledged in the investigation into the attempted hijacking of a fifth plane, this wasn't covered up. They did the investigation in 2023 after this came out, 22 years after the fact. So that, in fact, does not debunk that they covered anything up. If there was no, I'm not saying there was a cover up, but I'm saying that they didn't talk about it until 22 years later.
Okay.
So, and then also they say, well, the commission did investigate it. Okay. But they didn't even mention it. When you click on this and read the PDF, they don't mention anything about it. And so here's just a small clip of the flight attendants.
Taller, well-built gentleman in a tan suit, a young boy about 6 to 7 years old.
They're all Arab. They cut that
a
off
woman
for some reason.
in a hijab, and a gentleman that appeared to be a type of bodyguard.
My name is Sandy Thorngren. I was a flight attendant on Flight 23 on September 11th, 2001. I was working in the business galley. I had gotten out, walked down the aisleway going up to first class, and I noticed there were 4 people in first class. What struck me at that time was there was a woman wearing a burqa. I figured it was a woman because that's who wears that.
But it wasn't a woman.
The opening of
their
the
gender?
headdress was very tight, and you could barely see his eyes. I did explain to our purser that I thought that wasn't a woman, it was actually a man.
I was absolutely convinced it was a man. Absolutely.
So some of the other things about this. So the airplane was locked and sealed when they left the airplane, so something else was going on. The flight crew said there were 4 Arabs on the plane who demanded that the flight take off when the flight attendants tried giving them food. One of the men had requested to see the cockpit before takeoff. The crew says they were interviewed by the FBI but never heard back and found out if the men were questioned. So all these community notes on here, which again, do not disprove this theory. They also, I don't know if they talk about it. I'll let a little more play, but like,
okay.
There's like, they also talk about another guy who was like sweating like crazy through his shirt.
There was no doubt in my mind.
It was a man, and I could tell by the size of his hands. He had hair on his hands.
Well, the
It
women
was
do
definitely
too.
a male underneath that burqa.
But like, so it was a man posing as this guy's wife, seemingly. Yeah.
I went back through the business section, and I looked around, and I saw a gentleman sitting,
Another Arab, by the way.
just sweating profusely. Had a yellow T-shirt on. It was odd because it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and airplanes are cold anyway, but it was a cool morning. He wasn't jittery or anything, but I could see his face sweating, his body.
Now, maybe he just didn't like flying. I mean,
Right.
you know,
Sure.
it's possible.
T-shirt was wet under his arms.
This was all happening sometime after 8:30 a.m., before the first plane hit the World Trade Center. The flight attendants on United 23 saw things that seemed innocent enough then, but may have been anything but.
The gentleman in the tan suit, he asked the purser that he'd show his young son the cockpit, and passengers were just not allowed in the cockpit anymore.
Yeah, I wonder why.
I walked up to first class again, and there was a child with one of the men, and they were just looking into the cockpit.
It's possible. I mean, look, I see parents do it all the time. Just because they're Arab doesn't mean that they were going to do it. The other ones, the other group of 4 is more sus. Like the man wearing a burqa.
Right. That's
you know,
very sus.
This is all
Right.
happening as the other 9/11 flights are in the air, by the way, you know, or about to take off, I think. 8:30, I think it was just before they had taken off.
In first class, we have a choice of meals, but usually only 2 fruit plates. So I was trying to get catering to bring more fruit plates. Trying to do that while people are boarding and getting settled was just a mess.
As the purser was trying to discuss this with the gentleman in the tan suit, he finally said, it doesn't really matter.
The people that were in first class, they wanted to take off. They didn't want to eat. Our purser was determined that they get food because we had an extra long flight, and nothing on our menu in first class was going to let them eat because she said everything has meat on it. They were arguing with her that they didn't want to eat. They wanted to take off. They didn't want to eat. And I could hear them say, we do not want to eat. We don't need food. We want to take off. We don't need food. We just want to go.
I mean,
Huh.
I
Okay,
think
hold on. Some of us have felt that way on the airplane before when there's like random delays. Like
I
It's
never,
true.
yeah, I don't take the
that
food on
in
the
this
plane.
context, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the time, I mean, I don't take the food on the airplane because, you know, it's of my body size worst nightmare to have to take a dump on the plane. Like, it is like actual physical impossibility if it's one of the smaller jets. Like, it would be a nightmare. But like, I don't think I'm going to argue about it.
Right.
You know, I think if anything, I would just take it, and not eat it. You know, but it is, you know, I'll take the drink. You know, I'll take the drink and say, you know, I don't want to delay the flight, but also passing out food does not actually delay the takeoff of the flight. Now, maybe they, you know, thought that, but usually they're
Right.
passing out the food while they're still doing final checks and
Right.
doing all that kind of stuff.
Are they getting frustrated because she said like catering hadn't brought a vegetarian option or something?
That
so they
could
were, like,
be.
grounded?
Maybe she's
I
like,
thought
oh, we're
they
waiting.
just didn't eat pork. I didn't realize they don't. Because they
No,
said
they
mentioned
do eat meat. Yeah, they eat meat.
Yeah, I thought they still ate meat, but not
Yeah.
pork.
Yeah, they eat fish and
Chicken, right?
chicken, goat. I assume. You know, they.
I think they eat beef too. It's just the Indians who don't.
Unless
Yeah.
is it like the time of the year? Like they give.
It could have been
Oh,
Ramadan.
it could have been.
Oh,
I don't
actually,
know
it
when that
was.
falls.
Wait, when is Ramadan? I think that's in the fall, right?
I have no idea.
But why wouldn't they have said that?
Right.
No, it's in spring.
Oh, okay.
So no, it wasn't that. So, you know, I don't know. Not until cruising altitude is reached. No, I've definitely gotten food before takeoff. I've definitely gotten food before takeoff. If it's on a long flight, it might be right after takeoff, but it's pretty quick. By the way, the food I had on my flight to Hawaii was actually really good. It was like pulled pork and like it was. And I fell asleep for the first one, which was like some kind of chicken. But like the second one they gave me was like pulled pork. I was like, okay, I'll eat this. Once I knew I could get in the bathroom, they were like double wides because the plane was so
Okay.
big. I was like, okay, give me some food. You know, like I'll eat. Yeah. I mean, my feet alone are a problem. Like I wear size 16 and like I can't usually fit them underneath the seat in front of me, which is why I have to fly first class. And like when people like when Tim would want to fly me out, I'm like, I'm not a diva, but I have to fly first class. Or like I'm doing this like TV show.
I think you should be a diva
up.
about it. Just be like, look, I'm first class material.
Well,
I'm not
okay.
even, don't even justify it. Just demand first class, Jeremy.
Well, when it was like Tim, I was like, hey, he's a fellow content creator. I want to cost him extra money. But I'm doing this like TV show coming up that I can't talk about. But I told them, like, I can't divulge too many details. But I'm like, I'm fly first class. They're like, we'll give you. It was weird. They're like, we'll give you like a sum of money for spending while you're here, and then we'll book business class. And I was like, no. Like, it's got to be first class or I'm not coming. In fact, you could keep the stupid money because I'm not going anywhere in LA. I'm going from the airport to the filming back to the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be something pretty cool. Actually, I have two TV shows.
A little tease for Jeremy's life.
I got two shows.
Exciting
Yeah.
too.
You mean you're gonna miss an Estrocast to be on television?
I don't know when the filming is.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you make of this? Now, again, this isn't brand new information, but it is now. So they basically said, hey, look, there's a bunch of Arabs in first class.
Right.
When they left, for some reason, the hatch was open on the plane. There's a picture of it. Somebody took a picture of it.
So what happened then? Like nothing?
The plane got grounded because 9/11 happened.
Oh.
Before they could take off. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, man, see, as somebody who looks into a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff, it seems to be that the narrative around a lot of the conspiracies are that there weren't any flights at all that hit the towers, that those were holograms, and that they were explosives that were planted by George W. Bush and his administration or whatever. That's the lot of the conspiracies. So now that you've got, there's a fifth plane, that adds a whole other, different conspiracy. So
yeah, the question is, how did they respond when it was grounded? Did they try to, I'm not sure if they tried to like, I don't know. There's a lot of questions. Obviously, the third, Building 7 is. I have more questions about Building 7 than the fifth plane. But
where was this plane headed?
It was from New York to California. So it was another one of those big. They took the long international flights because they had more fuel in them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that was part of their strategy. That's why they took So it was another flight that was like from New York to LA or New York to Florida or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of the big planes, like the other ones that they used. So, I mean, is it possible? See, this is the pilot, I think, too. The pilot also believes it.
Was the tug driver or the gentleman who's going to push the airplane back said, hey, did you guys hear anything about a fire in the World Trade Center? And I said, no, we have no way of hearing anything about it. And we started our flight. We taxied out about a quarter of the way around the airport, and that was the second unusual thing I saw. At that time, 9 o'clock in the morning was a very, very quiet time. So as I taxied around the corner, I noticed almost like 10 or 11 airplanes in front of me, which I thought was highly unusual. I'd never seen that. I'd flown that flight a number of times and never seen more than 2 airplanes in front of me.
I think they were
So
holding
had there
takeoff,
only been
probably.
a few planes waiting for takeoff, Flight 23 may well have been airborne, and quickly.
So, I mean, the pilot and the whole crew all believe that, but like, so if the FBI looked into it, hey, Kash Patel, who are these 4 guys?
Oh,
Were they ever questioned? Like, also, they were from Saudi Arabia. I don't know if you know this, but 14 of the 17, I believe, 14 of the 18 of the total hijackers were also from Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, yeah.
So these 4 were also from Saudi Arabia, according to this report. Again, Are there 1,000 people from Saudi Arabia on flights every day? Probably. This particular group, when you have a man posing to be a woman, they're also from Saudi Arabia. It's the flight, the day of the attack. They get agitated when they won't take off. You know, it's to me, it's at least plausible, and I'm sure Dan Bongino and Kash Patel will go on Fox News and say that they're on top of it any day now.
We'll see.
Yeah.
So when they put the community notes on this, they don't say anything contradicting it. Do you think that like having the community note on it, if you were scrolling, you saw the community note, you might brush past it to like not check it out?
I think that's the hope. Yeah, I think that's the hope. Now, I still believe, and again, I'll say because we're multi-streaming, I believe without any evidence that this was an inside job. That's my belief.
That's what I believe as well.
I believe that they at least let it happen at the minimum, and borderline made it happen. That's my belief.
Now, if this were an inside job, then they could still have planted this fifth plane incident so that there would be witnesses who could attest to, oh, by the way, because then that would help push that narrative.
Well, hypothetically, if it was an inside job and you remove all the more difficult to believe hologram theories, and you just said the U.S. government knew it was happening and let it happen.
Right.
Like that's the easiest thing, that's the easiest conspiracy theory. And these people very well may have also been in on it. And, because the U.S., government wanted to go to war, and this was a perfect reason. We also know that the U.S. government, it was uncovered that they had planned for they had talked about the United States having another Pearl Harbor type event. What was it called? Operation, chat, help me out. Where at least somebody in government was talking about, having this type of an event to justify going to war. There's a lot of stuff that we won't get into, but people say it's either a lie hop or a my hop, a let it happen or made it happen.
Right.
There are a lot of people that believe it was a my hop. I happen to believe it was a lie hop. That they knew that it was happening, they let it happen so that they could go to war. That's what my belief is. I'm not saying I have evidence of it. I'm not saying that's a fact. I'm just saying that's what I believe. It was called Operation Chat, help me out. Yeah. I just saw what was it? I forget it. Well, whatever. There was one the owner took out an insurance policy. Yeah, right. He also didn't go to breakfast that day, even though he had gone to breakfast every day with him and his children every day leading up to that event. There are just too many coincidences. I think our government let it happen so they could go to war. That's what I think.